but they will still be doing the most effective jobs and replacing some of the very redundant jobs that humans shouldn't do. And the problem, arises about our sleeping and not understanding the genocides that have happened to us for the last 1000 years with Hindus. My only mission in life right now from a spiritual perspective is that helping my roots come back.
Hello and welcome to another fantastic episode of Pitch Cafe podcast. Today we have someone very special, very different because he's also a podcaster. Only a podcaster knows what another podcaster goes through. So today we will have a heart-out conversation. His journey is similar to my journey in a lot of ways. He has also gone through this whole transformation of reading books and how it changed his life. I have also gone through the same transformation. He also has a lot of thoughts on spiritual journey of individuals, which I also have. And most important of all, he's an AI geek. He's fascinated with AI. And I'm also very fascinated with AI and the latest technologies. So we are all in the genre of futurists. We imagine world when the way it's going and how it looks 10 years from now when most people cannot, but we want to say it so that it drives other people's imaginations. So that way we are kind of buddies here. We also have one more common thread running. We like to explore Hinduism and the scriptures and the ancient wisdom. So with so much in common, we are going to open this conversation. Welcome Vivek Dahiya, who is currently podcasting SCI-AI podcast. Welcome to this show, Pitch Cafe.
Thank you so much, Vida. Thank you for inviting me.
Fantastic. So Vivek, you have worn so many hats in your life, but we must start somewhere. So let me ask you this question. Who is Vivek Dahiya, the person behind the SCI-AI podcast magic? And why did you choose to get into podcasting? It's not common. Most people have reservations getting on a podcast, getting in front of a camera, talking in front of public. What was the driving force? So who is that Vivek Dahiya?
Thank you, Vida. Great question. My journey in podcasting started way before, like in 2014 or 15, when I actually wanted to start something, and I started with Anchor. But it started with blogging, actually. I was blogging a lot on LinkedIn, on Medium, on Quora. So I was like, but writing is taking a lot of time out of me. I may need to talk about it. So I used to record anything that I used to think while going to office, and I just used to record it and put it. I don't care how it sounds, whatever. But other than podcasting, I'm also a startup founder. I founded a startup here in Sweden when I moved from Philadelphia around 2018. The journey of founding my first company was really great. I pitched it to some of the investors in Stockholm. I didn't get any response yet, but it went well without actually getting any funding, because the demand for that kind of food concept was there in Sweden and in Scandinavia. But unfortunately, Corona happened, and we had to slow it down. I mean, it's still operational, going okay, but it's not that, as it was in the beginning. But anyways, so the journey of podcasting started just like yourself. I was very inquisitive, wanted to learn from people what their journeys are, and wanted to explore. And then through that, I wanted to spread the word of AI and tech and whatever my little knowledge is to the whole world. So that's how I started.
So fantastic. And why did you pick SCI-AI? You could have picked any other theme. And I did see right. Really interesting topics you're discussing on SCI-AI podcast. We'll get to that in the next few questions. Some of the themes really fascinated me. But why did you pick SCI-AI? Is this something related to your job, or were you inspired by some events, or what was the reason?
Again, great question, Vida, because we were discussing it offline just before we started. Is that my guru, my mentor in podcasting was actually Joe Rogan when I started, but then eventually I moved to Lex Fridman. Lex is more of a techie MIT guy into artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning. And so I was hooked to all of his podcasts. And I was like, even when I'm driving, eating, whatever, I was listening to him. And one day it just struck to me that, I have to spread more of his word. I have to find more of the ideas that probably he's not able to ask because of the fact that, he's busy as well, and he cannot do everything. And so people really appreciated whoever listened to the podcast, saying, you just match whatever Lex is doing, but great job, whatever that you have planned to do.
Fantastic. So, why did you pick the word SCI-AI? What is the
Yes.
origin of the name?
Very good question as well, because I'm not able to explain it to my viewers on my podcast. But it actually happened like this, that I thought sci-fi, so sci-AI. Instead of phi, I used it as AI. Sci is of course science, and then hyphen AI is for artificial intelligence. So the SCI-AI podcast.
Fantastic. And I know that you've been talking about so many amazing themes on SCI-AI podcast. One of the podcasts, you really talk about, you're pushing it. You talk about meta-humans. So, I know that meta-humans are humans with extraordinary capabilities, augmented either by technology or some other manner. What do you think about meta-humans, and is it good that human beings are headed in that direction?
Again, a great question, Vida. And I did that podcast with Dennis Rothman some time back, and I was blown away by what he said about meta-humans. It's actually not a term, it's not an industry term. It's more like when he was writing his artificial intelligence machine learning books, that he kind of invented them. But he has a great point about it, is that meta-humans is nothing but a robotic chatbots, which will eventually in the future will be living with us all the time. So for example, in the insurance and medical sector, where we have old people who needed to be reminded of their medicines, because you might know already that the whole of the West, there is not that united families. So most of the old people actually live in senior living, and to be able to take care of those people is also a lot of cost for the hospitals or the senior living or the assisted living communities. And so what they are planning to do now is that they will bring these robots who will actually be either sitting next to the patient or to the senior all the time, and they will remind them. They will go in the wings, knock on the doors and say, hey, you have to take your medication, do you remember that? Those kind of practical applications is what meta-humans, basically any robot that has a chatbot capability, wherein they can talk to you, not very deep conversations, because then they are not still artificial general intelligence like, but they will still be doing the most effective jobs and replacing some of the very redundant jobs that humans shouldn't do in 2022. So, and then the other application of it is, for example, as per UNESCO, I think there are almost 250 million students globally that are still not able to get education, especially in Africa. And so to be able to educate them with no cost by the African government or the other governments in Asia, other countries, they just need to get these solar powered tablets, wherein there is nobody needed, but there is a chatbot, there is a meta-human which is sitting with them, acting like a teacher and being able to spread the education forever. Like, they never sleep, they're always on. So that's a great practical applications that meta-humans will be fulfilling in the coming decade or so.
That's really fascinating. I mean, it boggles my mind thinking about this development. I want to push it slightly further, leading to my next question. Some of the ancient technologies, which were considered more advanced than our technologies, they were woven into living fabric. For example, in the ancient Egyptian tombs, the sunlight triggered a lot of things. Sunlight is natural. and the air and the stone, they were triggered by the solar cycles, and a lot of changes happened within the building because of this. And today in Dubai they are building zero carbon and fully organic buildings, so they probably balance energy with natural light, and they don't use much electricity there. And they use the power of wind and things like this. So with all this going on, let's assume that there is our ancient civilizations were more advanced than us. Are we living in a simulation? Did some of the ancient civilizations who were more advanced than us, who were more organic, for example, maybe they put 50 million parameters and created me, and they put 50 million parameters and created a variant, and that is you, then are we all in a simulation? Elon Musk says that. A lot of influencers are saying that. What do you think?
Great question. And I used to ask this question from all the speakers that I used to have on my podcast as well, because it's a hot topic, and then it is something that has not been proven yet. But imagine somebody who had the experience of building great startups and making it to the level of SpaceX can actually say, not with certainty, but he did say that we might be living in a simulation. So there is a case of proving it. And there are scientists like Nick Bostrom, Ray Kurzweil, who are actually actively working on proving that we are sort of living in a simulation. And there is no evidence to it, but there is a whole lot of evidence to it as well, for the mere fact that imagine that how would you prove that reality is reality? There is no evidence to us by humans from a godly creature that we can by 100% certainty say that we are living or we are sitting right now on these chairs and we actually exist right now. So if we cannot say that, then there comes the case that we might be controlled in somebody else's brain, and it is all sort of a simulation, sort of a matrix, and it takes me back to Vida, to that podcast that I did with a few theoretical physicists as well, wherein I asked them the question about Michio Kaku, one of the great theoretical physicists himself, very renowned. He talks about the type 4, type 1 to type 2, type 3, type 4 civilizations. Right. And when you said that, about the pyramids and the, organic, taking organic energy and using it for our benefit, is something that the modern human has just learned, like in the last 50 years or so. And so we are still not there yet. We are still not the type 1 civilization where we will be able to exploit all the energy available to us by the sun or by our nature around us. But we are getting there. And one of those could be the simulation itself, trying to understand whether we are in a simulation or not. And
let me add to your perspective here.
Yes.
So the Facebook algorithm is a simulation. The Google search algorithm is a simulation.
Yes.
The way these search engines are promoting news is a simulation. It seems in some Southeast Asian countries, Facebook is the default search, and they had a riot because it was polarized. There was a riot which caused to mass killing because of this. So aren't few people simulating the world because of the parameters? The Cambridge Analytica, which controlled US elections from the Russia, or who knows, the current war in Ukraine could be a simulation. You never know.
Yes.
So
you're absolutely right. It is not a conspiracy theory. It is not proven yet with 100% certainty, but that doesn't mean that, the absence of evidence doesn't mean there is no evidence, right? So You're right. It could be that we are getting there.
Awesome. So much about imagination and about speculation. Let's come to the real world. Because you've been doing so many AI podcasts, that too with top of the line experts. I know you had a discussion with a smart city expert, Jonathan Reichenthal. Yeah, these are all amazing futurists, change makers, future makers. I want to ask, what are some of the critical AI applications you think like they're really fascinating you right now, and what do you think is the future of AI? Is it another bubble? But there are technology bubbles; they come and go. What are your thoughts?
Again, great question, Vida. It is not a bubble. We just have this problem of change management among even modern humans. So if we go back to industrial revolution, people actually, there were communities who were discarding cars, who were saying we will never fly in this man-made aeroplane. There were people who said when the telephone was invented that we will never touch it because it is something that has been created by heavenly gods or by monsters. There were theories like that at that time, and even today people start believing that AI is something that will kill us all, or something, artificial general intelligence, it'll kill us all, it'll be bad for humans, it is a human last invention of human, as they say. But it's all not right. The reason is it is still tool based. Whatever we do with AI is still very, very tool based. Yes, when the control goes to the machines or to the algorithms, like you said, Facebook controls everything now, or Google controls everything, which is actually a code, binary. Yes, it can become dangerous when the AI have different goals than us, but we are the parents of that AI. We are the ones who are creating that AI, right? So we would never want our offsprings to be bad. So we will never. So that is the reason why everybody is talking about AI ethics. Elon Musk and several others also created Open AI to be able to regulate some of the work that is going in AI. But having said that, at the same time, there is a strong case that we are still humans. There is a strong case that even with all the regulations, there were Hitlers created, there were Mussolini's created, there were weapons which were created for saving humans. Now they are killing humans. So yes, the speculation about it, the threatening part about it is right. It's not wrong. We just need to make sure that AI is regulated in a way that nobody will be able to use it for their bad means, and the AI does not go out of hand when it becomes to the stage of general intelligence, which, according to my experience by the podcast that I've done with so many worldwide experts, we are still many decades away from general intelligence.
Yeah, that is because that will lead to our next question. That's because general intelligence cannot match human emotions. The source of human emotions is coming from, they say, a sort of a consciousness, a sort of place where you can decide with empathy. So do you think AI can create emotions? I was working with a professor who had a project going on where they were supposed to create emotions and add that to the avatars digitally, and later on to the robots physically. So there are a lot of robots used in therapy. They have really genuine facial expressions. They almost look human. So, what is your take on AI being able to create emotions? How far have you gotten there? And is this headed in the right direction? AI creating emotions?
Great question again. Ameca, AMECA, is the first humanoid robot. So if you see how she talks, or how she blinks her eyes, or shows emotions on her face, it's precisely, copying how a human could be. Yeah, exactly. So we are getting there. The only thing is they are very limited in their approach. They're still not there in terms of intelligence. Their parameters, the models that are created for them are very, very limited. It's still very, very tool based, but very, very intelligent robots. I mean, the future of it and adding emotions to it. I have done some podcasts, Vida, wherein I have also got in touch with artificial general intelligence experts who talk about the fact that creating these chatbots are great, but if you want to add consciousness like we have, or if you want to create a human-like robot, you would have to understand the ontology, the epistemology, the philosophical concepts of how we humans got knowledge. And till we don't understand that, how
Yes.
will we put it in a robot? So yeah,
That's a fantastic thought. How did humans acquire knowledge? Was it dropped from the
correct.
heavens, or did we evolve socially? Do you think
Yeah.
individual intelligence is as important as social intelligence? Do we learn by interaction? So basically, those are great questions. What
Yeah,
knowledge is encoded and what knowledge is learned by experience. So with
exactly.
that, this is very fascinating conversation about emotions. I want to move to some real world experiences you and I have talked about.
Yeah.
Coming out of the world of artificial intelligence, let's talk about human feelings and human intelligence. There was a movie called The Kashmir Files, which was probably very discussed in the last few months. It did do well on the box office. It was one of these unforgettable incidents in history about human genocide, and directed to a certain sect of people. So, what is your take on that movie? And what did you feel when that whole thing was going on?
Yeah, it was breathtaking. The way the movie has got the response, Vida, not just in India, but globally, tells us that we were the most sleeping community in the world. And the problem, arises about our sleeping and not understanding the genocides that have happened to us for the last 1000 years with Hindus, is because of the fact that it is not our mistake, though, not 100%. The reason being our colonial minds. Even the language that we are talking right now is not our own.
Yeah.
That is not something that our ancestors 10,000 years ago have created for us. They have created for us Sanskrit, Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, and all that, right?
Yeah.
The moment Urdu and English and Portuguese and French and Spanish came into our culture is when we started hating our own culture. And that started with the rise of communism, the left liberalism in India. And that formed a strong opinion in India where there was no conservative voices, where there was no point of nationalism in India. There was very, very fake nationalism. And so when these kind of incidents happened, what the Kashmir Files movie had shown back in 1990s, and I was actually the biggest proof of it because I was there. My father was in Indian Air Force and we were actually posted in Srinagar at that time. And although we were very safe in a campus, Air Force campus, but we used to get to know that 3 Hindus were murdered by Muslims in the Kashmir Valley and all that. So the situation has started to change. And then when we moved out, we get to know everything what has happened. What this movie has done, Vida, for us is that it has told the very created sort of narrative in India for the last 70 years, is that somebody can tell a very clear narrative of nationalism without getting feared from anybody else. There were some tries, some movies done in the past, but they were sort of suppressed, saying, boring, what is this cheap class nationalism, nationalistic movies and all. And so when you see a Rang De Basanti, or when you see movies that are still touching like Chak De India, it still shows to you which has never been done yet. Like the act of Kabir Khan in Chak De India isn't true. It is some Hindu coach, a hockey coach, which was, when India lost to Pakistan in that hockey match, was sort of debarred from the team. So the creators, this cabal of Bollywood, actually they play this role very nicely. What they do is they would bring these Muslim centric sort of voices and opinion to the forefront using our own ideas. So it has happened to an Hindu, but they would paint it as Kabir Khan, and then the minorities are getting persecuted in India and all that. So there was huge. I mean, you remember Chuck? There was a huge movie in India. It isn't true. And so was Rang De Basanti. What is Rang De Basanti telling is that if you don't like your government or people in it, just shoot them. Why? Because at 1940s, Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad and Chandrasekhar Azad, Bhagat Singh, they also shot. so you can also shoot. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? So there are so many things that we can discuss in our upcoming podcast, but I would like to come back to the colonial aspect of it, Vida, which is very, very important. If we read books like what I have here, I have actually started reading it. This is the second time that I'm reading his book, JSI Deepak. It's called India, that is Bharat.
Mm-hmm.
And so why this book is very, very important for all Indians, and especially Hindus, and even for minorities of India, is it is so important. The reason is we look everything from the lens of colonial mindset. Everything that the Christian church has dictated to the world in terms of left liberalism has been taught to us. You remember our school days, our childhood days, everything is fine with our country. There were so many sacrifices given by our people, and glorification of Mughals and Tughlaqs, which is absolutely wrong history, right? All of that is possible is because when you make the whole generation after generation this inferior mindset. That is the reason why I always say, if you travel, not us, but there are so many people in India, if they travel outside, they would love to talk to a Gora guy, right? They would be like, oh, they're so happy to meet a white person, a Caucasian. Why? Because it is inbred in us for hundreds of years, this colonial mindset that we are inferior in some way, which we are not. If you read the history of Maharana Pratap, if you read the history of Raja Dahir in 711 AD, when the first Islamic ruler Muhammad bin Qasim came to India, he was the first person who stood by himself with a very meager army. That is what is not being taught in our schools. And so how will we feel so proud about our country? For example, if I'm living here in Sweden, people are so proud about their culture. If I want to talk to them in English, they will never talk, because for them it's a second language. In India, it's the opposite. If you know English, you will always talk in English. If you talk in Hindi, you're thought of sort of inferior. He or she talks in Tamil, they don't even know English, or he or she talks in Hindi, they don't know English, right? That is the kind of catapult that has happened with our minds, and that is the reason why I think books like this, and then I will also share some more in our description of this video, wherein this will tell us as to why watching Kashmir Files and understanding what has happened to us, it is in our face, it has happened, and it will again happen, because it is happening right now, even today, in West Bengal, in so many places, in Kerala. You as a Hindu cannot do your Ram Navami celebrations. You cannot imagine in a Hindu country, and which is only one country in the world. I mean, for Christians, there are hundreds of countries. For Muslims, there are 56 countries in the world. Even for Jews, there are so many countries, Israel and others, right? For Hindus, it's just one. And even in your own country, you cannot recite Hanuman Chalisa, or you cannot say Jai Shri Ram, or whatever your belief is in your idol, because you're not secular. And so what is happening to us, Vida, is a war that we are not able to understand, because we are too busy in making our money, in making our jobs and progress, and making sure we get our MBA degrees, which is good, which is not bad. But at the same time, we need to learn to say what has happened to us was wrong, and we will not let that happen again.
Yeah. This is, I think, a transformative narrative, a new viewpoint. I had not even thought about, looking back the history of our country in the last 50 years. It's absolutely right. What you have been, narrating systematically, that's what has happened. You and I have gone through, we are that generation. Yeah. But the current generation is quite aware. I'm listening to more voices like you.
Yes.
The younger generation, the younger they are, the smarter they are. That's what because they know more from the internet. They have hindsight, and they have foresight, and they have good viewpoint from both sides. So this is great that people like you are clearly saying things the way they were. So
and sorry if I interrupt you for one thing, which I remembered, is that if you remember, Vida, Winston Churchill has said, those who do not learn from the history tend to repeat it. And we are repeating it every 100 years. with some other ruler. Now it was for the last 70 years, it was the Congress and all that. We are tend to repeating our own mistakes, and we are getting killed on the roads. I mean, imagine if even if one American or if one Swedish life has been lost, they will take the hell out of the people who have done that, right? But in India, people are getting killed, and most of the people, those are Hindus. The problem is, in the garb of secularism, we don't even talk about it. Why?
Yeah.
What are we afraid of, right?
No, it is a very complex ecosystem, India, because I work with a lot of my team is, they are not Hindu. They're probably second generation, whatever religion they are, or they've been
Right.
there for a while. So in that way, secularism is good. People are working together, and these people are not even aware of what has happened. If you go to the UK, the current generation, they're very empathetic to India, but they're for 2 generations before them, those people had a very strong colonial instinct. So the
Yes.
current generation is, they're actually weeping when they look at our independence stories. They're really empathetic. So I think we have to differentiate, and we have to pick the right people to share this message. If somebody's forcing this on Hindus, it's not acceptable at all. We should not force someone to convert to a path which is not natural.
Exactly.
Yeah, it should not be done. Yeah.
There is, I would also like to just mention one more thing. There is a huge association of Hindus in America called the Global Hindu Network or something like that. I will also share that link with you. They are doing amazing job. The problem is the same thing. We are not united. And so the other forces, who are trying to break India, and it is a fact, there are so many evidences to it. They always win in front of the global HNA network, the Hindu network. And so, definitely we will talk about it in our coming podcast as to how to fix that as well.
Sure. So with that, let's come back to the podcast's main theme.
Sure.
Your inspiration for SCI-AI and all the other things. You wear so many hats. So as a wrap, what is your most favorite mission in life, and what do you want to tell the audience?
Yeah. And before I say that, Vida, I don't know if ideologically we are not aligned, but no offense to anybody. If I'm sort of aligning to another ideology which supports Hinduism, and if somebody or even you do not align to it, it's absolutely fine. We can at least discuss it. That's my only point. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Definitely. So this is something people, when there is freedom of speech, Elon Musk just bought Twitter. One of the things he wants to promote is freedom of speech, which means you have to be okay if somebody has a different point of view and they're voicing it, and not be barbaric about it. People are different. They will have different opinions. If you work in a team, that's the first thing you learn, especially if you're higher up in management. As smarter you get in handling a large organization, you will know that people will make your blood boil. You still have to be elegant, and you have to do the right thing, what is good for the masses. So with that, I want to talk about your favorite mission in life. We heard you. We heard your disclaimer. We certainly love you. We'll certainly come back to you. But what is your favorite mission in life?
Yes, I think Vida, we grow as individuals as we grow in age. For the last 35 years, my mission in life was to sort of settle down myself in my career, with my family and everything. And now that it looks all good, now I want to focus on my roots. That's my mission in life. Because I believe that I had this profound, thought that has happened to me, and I was thinking about it. Is that it? So what if I become a millionaire tomorrow by earning a lot of money? Is that it? What if I find some more fascinating aspects of AI and of space through my podcasts, or through getting associated with a research work or something? Is that it? So then I thought that, what is it that I'm missing in my life? And that is something that I thought that it should be okay to say that you should be connected to your roots. Why? Because imagine if we go back to 30 generations back, something like 1500 years ago. Imagine what our ancestors would have thought, that when our next generations will come, we give this sacrifice for them, whether it is through life, whether it is through hard work, whether it is through doing all the kind of sacrifices that they may have done with the limited resources that they have. And so it is our debt to our own people, to our land. This is our karma land where we are today, but that's our matrubhumi where our country is, right? And so to me, I think it's my only mission to in life right now from a spiritual perspective is that helping my roots come back, helping my dharma, Sanatan Dharma. I'm learning about it, Vida. It's amazing. Sanatan Dharma is science. I'm learning about it, and it's that is where I'm going to go and work on for the rest of my life.
Absolutely. Where there is the mention of a non-linear physics, the way they mention equations is through music, through
Yes.
the Chanda Shastra they use. There is a Bhakshali manuscript which has evolved into Devanagari. There is also, oh God, I cannot stop. There is geometry, there is sacred geometry, there is geometry of structures which last for a long time. There's material physics, material chemistry, oh gosh. There's mining.
So many things.
It's amazing. And self-sustaining energy, very futuristic technologies, which a lot of Western forces refer to. Niels Bohr read the Indian Upanishads. He was very well versed. So was Einstein. They knew a lot about Sanskrit. They were able to decode these equations from Sanskrit because they spent the time understanding what each pronunciation means. So I'm learning some scriptures, but there are 5 to 6 levels to it. One is the meter, one is the meaning, and the first level, second level, third level meaning. They call the Lakshmi or the Vishnu, they're trying to describe the atomic and subatomic forces with metaphors. So, one is proton, one is electron, one is neutron, but then otherwise it is, it's the flower, or it is the, the navel, or it is the heart of the goddess, it's just such a parallel in metaphors. Somebody has to understand and systematically implement that. Maybe that is where the civilization was more advanced. So with that, this is a conversation which is going to continue.
Yes, absolutely.
We'll have to stop somewhere. So very reluctantly, I want to wrap up this amazing, hour which you spent with me. I hope the listeners are able to think about new ideas, because this was packed with new ideas and new perspectives on life. So thank you, Vivek, for gracing the show. Any last thoughts before we part ways?
Thank you, Vida, for giving me this opportunity. Really very excited to talk to you about it. And let's get together and, bring out more ideas through our podcasts. I think our journeys are almost the same. Our passion, our vision are almost the same.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vivek. I look forward to that. With that, I'd like to wrap up this podcast with Vivek Dahiya, podcaster of SCI-AI podcast show. Please check it out. He's on YouTube. He's got a profile on LinkedIn as well. And feel free to connect with him on these platforms. Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you, Vida. Have a great day.
You too.